Hello everyone and welcome to another random bits and pieces segment from my brain, and today, still a while, for we are playing some more Franchise Hockey Manager 6 as part of the Ottawa Senators. So in the last episode I kind of cut it short maybe because typically I do April and the playoffs together. But April was already kind of long on its own because it had a lot more games than usual, so I decided to kind of cut it short and decided to focus on a video for just the playoffs for 2006. So we're going to go ahead and see if I can win yet another Stanley Cup here. So we finished the regular season, and I don't think that I've pointed it out at the end of the video, but this is an NHL record. We suffered less than 8 losses total during the regular season. So at the end of the 70s, the Montreal Canadiens had 8 losses. Of course, back then there were no ties in the or no overtime, rather. So it's a different era and everything, and it's always kind of clunky when you try to compare errors like that. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking strictly at what the record is, I beat a record. I had only 7 losses total, so 4 regulation losses and 3 overtime losses total, and 75 wins. So I think it's safe to say that we are probably the favorites to win the cup. At least I would hope so. But we have to take it one step at a time, you never know. So we are going to start the playoffs here playing against the Toronto Maple Leafs because they finished 8th in the East, tied with Boston, but I guess they won the tiebreaker, so it's Toronto we're facing. We went 8-0 against Toronto this year. Let's take a look at their lineup here and see if we are probably going to win or what. Alright, so Ian White is not going to be playing in those playoffs. He is hurt, so he's not going to be there. Now in net it's Jean-Sébastien Giguère and Ty Conklin. So that's decent goaltending right there. And then of course Toronto went out and got Sergei Gonchar. So pretty good defenseman there. And then Kronwall, Matvichuk, Gary Fisher, Karel Pilash, and Brad Lukowicz on D. So it's an OKD. Definitely boosted by having Gonchar on it. Then Brad Boyce, Ponikarovsky, Varlamov, Steen, Fyodoruk, Hall, Marchand, Perrault, Steckel, Zajac, Moore, Antropov, Zhirina, David Moss, and Eric Cole. We should be able to beat this team, I would think. They do have a few pretty interesting players. Eric Cole is a pretty good power forward type of player, so definitely a pretty good player there. Alex Steen is kind of interesting as well there, so we'll see what happens, but I do expect to win this series. Alright, so we are starting off course at home. We are going to be home ice advantage for the entirety of the playoffs. Alright, so let's see if we can beat Toronto. So looks like they're going to give the net to Ty Conklin for the playoffs, not Giguère. It's pretty interesting, and Sergei Gonchar is still wearing his Capitals jersey there. Knowing Toronto fans, they probably are going to have an issue with that. Alright, well, go Sens go. And we won the first game 3-1. Alright, good start to the playoffs. So we outshot Toronto 49-22 in game 1. Pavel Datsyuk was the first star. He had 2 goals. Alex Steen was the second star with a goal. And Joe Thornton was the third star with 2 assists. We had 18,232 people in attendance for this game. So Toronto opened up the scoring in the first period, and it was 1-0 Toronto after 1, so it looked like Toronto was in business there. But then in the second period, Pavel Datsyuk scored both of his goals. So the first one assisted by Joe Thornton, and then the second one from Anton Volchenkov and Joe Thornton, and it was 2-1 Sens after 2, so we turned things around a little bit. And then in the third period, Patrick Eliash would score the entrance goal from Daniel Alfredson and Brooks Laik, and 3-1 was the final score. Alright, good first game here. Good game for Mike Ribeiro playing in Montreal. He had 3 goals and an assist against Carolina in the first game between those two teams. Speaking of which, let's take a look at the scores there. So San Jose beat Colorado 4-2, Detroit won against LA, Chicago beat Nashville, and Edmonton beat St. Louis, Montreal beat Carolina, we beat Toronto, Philadelphia beat Atlanta, and New Jersey had the best of Pittsburgh and Sidney Crosby. Alright, so we are ready for game 2 here against Toronto still, of course. Alright, so still Ty Conklin in net for Toronto. We are going to Ryan Miller. And we won game 2 7-1. We outshot Toronto 41-18. Jason Spezza was the first star. He had a goal and 3 assists. Joe Thornton was the second star with a goal and 3 assists as well. And Brooks Lake was the third star with 3 assists. 17,749 people in attendance for that game, so we are still not filling up the arena for those playoffs, despite winning several Stanley Cups in a row. So in the first period, we had Jason Spitz open up the scoring on the power play from Alexei Yashin and Brian McCabe. And then in this, for the second goal, Daniel Alfredson scored on the power play as well from Brooks Lake and Joe Thornton. It was 2-0 Sens after 1. Now, Chris Neal and Travis Zajac got into a fight in the first period as well. Then in the second period, Patrick Elias scored from Brooks Lake and Daniel Alfredson, and then Brian McCabe from Joe Thornton and Jason Spezza. It was 4-0 Sens after 2. And then finally in the third period, Zdeno Chara scored from Jason Spezza and Joe Thornton. Then Toronto scored, made it 5-1, but we would score again. It was Michael Ryder on the power play from Alexei Yashin and Jason Spezza. And then finally Joe Thornton scored on the power play as well from Brooks Lake and Zdeno Chara. 7-1 is the final score. Pretty one-sided affair in that one there. Toronto fans are probably not too happy with their team right now. They can be pretty critical. San Jose beat Colorado again. Detroit beat Los Angeles again. Chicago beat Nashville again. And Edmonton beat St. Louis again. So all of the series in the West are 2-0. Montreal won as well. 2-0. 2-0. Philadelphia won against... Well, all of the series are 2-0. That's pretty easy. Did I get that right? Did I think I did. I don't think I messed up. I think it's 2-0 everywhere. Sure is. Alright. That makes it easy. Alright. Alright, so now the series moved to Toronto, where their rabid fans are probably gonna welcome us with pitchforks and cocktail molotovs or something. Alright, so not much else to say about that. So, sorry, I was drinking some water. Talking to myself a lot like that tends to make me thirsty. Alright, so we are also going to Ryan Miller, of course. They're deciding to move to Jean-Sébastien Giguère, so Conklin really didn't pan out in the first couple games, so they're going to move to Giguère here and see if they can get better results. We won 5-0, of course. Giguère can't score goals, and his team didn't score any, so... we outshot Toronto 37-23 in that game. Pavel Datsyuk was the first star. He had a hat-trick, 3 goals. Joe Thornton was the second star with 2 assists, and Jason Spezza was the third star with 2 assists as well. Alright, so Pavel Datsyuk opened up the scoring in the first from Jason Spezza and Joe Thornton, and then scored again later from Jason Spezza and Joe Thornton again. So it was 2-0 Sens, or should I say 2-0 Pavel Datsyuk against Toronto after the first. And then in the second period, Anton Volchenkov scored from Alexei Yashin and Chris Kelly, made it 3-0. And then in the third period, Martin Havlat from Mike Fisher and Matt Cullen. And then finally, Pavel Datsyuk finished off his hat trick with his 5th of the playoffs already, short-handed, from Zdeno Chara. 5-0 is the final score. And that's a pretty nice final score if you're an Ottawa fan. And that was news that Datsyuk scored a hat trick. We saw it. We were there. Todd Reardon is back from suspension in Atlanta. And memorable game for Jonathan Chichu, who had 3 goals and an assist against Colorado. Alright, so what do we see here? San Jose rocked Colorado 8-1. Detroit won. So San Jose and Detroit are both up 3-0. Nashville managed to win against Chicago, so that series is 2-1. Edmonton won, they lead 3-0. Montreal won, they lead 3-0. We lead 3-0. Atlanta won, so now it's 2-1. And Pittsburgh won, so it's 2-1 there as well. Alright, so we're gonna play Toronto. We might eliminate them here, so they're gonna go back to Giguère. They feel like he's been doing better, even though they still didn't win. And we are keeping Ryan Miller in net, of course. And we won 4-3, so we swept the Leafs in the first round of the playoffs. We outshot the Leafs 46-21 in that game. Anton Volchenkov opened up the scoring in the first period from Alexei Yashin and Patrick Eaves. Then the Leafs scored 3 unanswered goals after that. So the Leafs were up 3-1 at that point. I bet the fans in Toronto really started to believe about a Stanley Cup or something. But then before the end of the period, Jason Spezza scored on the power play from Brooks Laich and Alexei Yashin. It was 3-2 Toronto after 1. Then in the second period, we tied the game. Daniel Alfredson scored from Brooks Laich and Patrick Elias. It was tied at 3. After 2, Toronto fans still believed, but Jason Spezza scored early in the third period from Pavel Datsyuk and Dmitry Kalinin. It was 4-3, nobody else would score, and we are moving on to the second round. Joe Pavelski in San Jose is suspended. He's going to miss 3 games. Wow, those are playoff games too, so that's pretty harsh. Vernon Fiddler in Nashville is back from suspension, so he's going to be able to start playing in the playoffs. Okay. Oh, and for the month of April, for the rest of the regular season, Jason Spezza and Ed Belfour were named the Players of the Month. So look at us. Look at us getting awards. San Jose swept Colorado. I didn't see that one coming. So San Jose swept Colorado in the first round. Detroit swept the Kings. Nashville tied their series. St. Louis avoided elimination. Montreal swept Carolina. We swept Toronto. Philadelphia is up 3-1, and New Jersey is up 3-1 as well. So lots of series ending quickly in the first round. Alright, I get to select a Hall of Fame nominee. Who am I going to nominate to be nominated for the Hall of Fame? Yeah, I wish I could see their stats and everything. For a second, I thought it said Wayne Gretzky. There was like, why do I have to vote? He should be like an automatic. From all of those guys, I think I'm gonna pick Dave Ellett. Well, let's see what happens with the other series there. Alright. Oh, amazing off-season workout regimen for Johnny Boychuk. So Colorado might be eliminated, but Johnny Boychuk had a good workout, so he's gonna get better. Alright. So Nashville now took the lead in the series, so they lost the first 2 games, now they won the last 3, so Nashville is up 3-2 in their series against Chicago. Edmonton finally eliminated St. Louis, New Jersey eliminated Pittsburgh, and Philadelphia eliminated Atlanta, so there's only one series that's still alive, and it's Nashville against Chicago. Oh, Chicago tied the series at 3 apiece, so the victor of the next game is moving on to the second round. Game 7s are pretty cool to watch, but if you play them, you're probably nervous as crazy. And Chicago ended up eliminating Nashville. Wow, so Chicago won the first 2 games, Nashville won the next 3, and then Chicago the last 2. That's pretty crazy. Momentum swings right there. Alright, so our second round matchup is a very familiar opponent in the playoffs for us, the New Jersey Devils. So we tend to play them quite a bit. And I believe that Montreal is going to be facing Philadelphia. Yeah, Montreal's facing Philadelphia, and in the West it's going to be Chicago against Edmonton and San Jose against Detroit. I'm really hoping somebody can knock Detroit out of the playoffs so that I can face somebody in the finals other than the Red Wings. That would be fun, maybe, if I can make it to the finals. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I might not make it there. Alright, so we're going to take a look at the Devils. So we were 3-1 against the Devils this season, so it's one of the very few teams that was able to beat us in regulation. No injuries in New Jersey, so what we see here is their full lineup. So Martin Brodeur in net, that's a pretty solid option. Brent Johnson, Carlo Kolayakovo, Paul Martin, Scott Niedermayer, Darren Quint, Jason Cullimore, Mike Commodore, Brian Rafalski on D. That's pretty solid D. Brian Gianta, John DeSalvatore, I think that's his name. Yes. Zach Parise, Antoine Vermette, Payet, Gamache, Nieuwendyk, Madden, Gomez, Amante, Moen, Tadaxon, Rolston, and Nicholas Bergfors. So pretty interesting cast of forward as well. Joe Nieuwendyk is down to a star-and-a-half player now. So it's been a little bit more difficult for Nieuwendyk lately. Of course, he's getting older. Alright, so Brodeur in net for New Jersey. We are going to Ryan Miller. Go, Sens, go. And we won the first game, 4-2. We doubled New Jersey in shots, 40-20. Alexei Yashin was the first star of the game. He had a goal and 2 assists. Zach Parise was the second star with a goal and an assist. And Brian McCabe was the third star with a goal and an assist as well. We had 17,733 people in attendance for that game. So we opened up the scoring in the first. It was Patrick Eves from Alexei Yashin and Anton Volchenkov. It was 1-0 Sens at that point. But then Zach Parise tied the game. Then we scored again. It was Brian McCabe from Chris Kelly and Alexei Yashin. And then Joe Nieuwendyk, former Ottawa Senator Joe Nieuwendyk, tied the game. It was tied at 2 after 1. And then in the second period, Jason Spezza scored from Pavel Datsyuk and Joe Thornton. And then Alexei Yashin from Brian McCabe and Patrick Eves. It was 4-2 after 2. And then in the third period, Zdeno Chara took the lone penalty in the game. It was a boarding penalty. New Jersey did not score on it. Nobody scored in the third. And 4-2 is the final score. Alright, so Detroit won against San Jose, Edmonton won against Chicago, we won against New Jersey, and Philadelphia beat Montreal. Alright, ready for game 2. Still at home, still against the Devils, and probably still against Martin Brodeur. Yeah, I called it. Pretty smart like that. Ryan Miller in net for us, so let's see if we can beat them again. Ooh, tight affair. We won 2-1. So we outshot New Jersey 35-29 in that one. So it was pretty tight. They played us pretty tight in that one. Joe Thornton was the first star. He had 2 assists. Scott Niedermayer was the second star with a goal. And Jason Spezza was the third star with a goal and an assist. 19,659 people in attendance for that game. That's a little bit more like it. Jason Spezza opened up the scoring in the first period. It was his 5th of the playoffs from Pavel Datsyuk and Joe Thornton. And then New Jersey tied the game. So it was tied at 1 after 1. And then nobody scored until the third period, where Daniel Alfredsson played the hero with 3:51 to go in the third period, assisted by Jason Spezza and Joe Thornton. And the Sens took a 2-0 lead in the series with a 2-1 win. No missed time for San Jose's Milan Michalek, who was not suspended. And Marian Hossa is about to start skating, which means that he might be back in a couple weeks. So he might be back before the end of the playoffs. Alright, so the series is shifting into New Jersey. I forgot to look at the scores. I'm sorry. So Edmonton beat Chicago again. Detroit beat San Jose again. Philadelphia beat Montreal again, and we beat New Jersey again. So all the series are 2-0. All right. So moving in to New Jersey, still Ryan Miller for us. Still Martin Brodeur for the Devils. And we won 7-1. Wow. So we outshot the Devils 43-19. Brooks Laich was the first star. He had 3 assists. Patrick Elias was the second star with a goal and an assist. And Pavel Datsyuk was the third star with a goal and an assist as well. So Zdeno Chara opened up the scoring in the first period, assisted by Jason Spezza. And then Brian Rolston tied the game, and it was tied at 1 after 1. It looked like it was going to be a pretty tight affair. Then we scored 2 goals in the second period. Alexei Yashin from Brian McCabe and Chris Kelly. And then Brian McCabe from Joe Thornton and Pavel Datsyuk. And it was 3-1 Sens after 2. And then the roof fell on New Jersey Devils fans in the third period as we scored 4 unanswered goals. So Daniel Alfredsson scored from Patrick Elias and Brooks Laich, Pavel Datsyuk from Mark Streit and Zdeno Chara, Mark Streit on the power play from Brooks Laich and Jason Spezza, and finally Patrick Elias from Daniel Alfredsson and Brooks Laich. 7-1 was the end of that massacre. Anton Volchenkov converts to right defense. That's mostly where he played for the Sens, on the right of Chris Phillips. Joe Pavelski is back from suspension with the Sharks. Right, now let's take a look at those scores. So Detroit won again against San Jose, and then Edmonton won again against Chicago. So those series are 3-0. We are up 3-0. Montreal finally won against Philadelphia, so that series is 2-1. So it might be a short second round all together. Alright, so playing in New Jersey again, we have Ryan Miller, they have Martin Brodeur, and we won 2-1. So we outshot New Jersey 33-16. Jason Spezza was the first star, he had a goal. Brian Rolston was the second star with a goal, and Pavel Datsyuk was the third star with an assist. So Zdeno Chara opened up the scoring in the first period on the power play from Pavel Datsyuk and Patrick Elias, and it was 1-0 Sens. Then in the second period, New Jersey tied the game, and it was tied at 1 after 2. But then in the third period, midway into the third, Jason Spezza scored from Dmitry Kalinin and Joe Thornton. 2-1 was the final score, and we move on to the Eastern Conference Finals against either Montreal or Philadelphia. Alright, so San Jose avoided elimination. Edmonton swept Chicago, we swept New Jersey, and Montreal tied their series with the Flyers. Montreal now took a 3-2 lead. San Jose made it 3-2 in the series against Detroit. So those teams are refusing to die. Now Philadelphia took a 3-2 lead. Or no, they eliminated Montreal. Wait. Now I'm confused. I managed to confuse myself. Oh, Montreal took a 3-2 lead. Now it's tied at 3, but Detroit eliminated San Jose. Okay, that's what's going on. Alright, so it's going to be Detroit and Edmonton in the Western Finals, and we are facing the winner of the next game between Montreal and Philadelphia, which we have both seen a few times in the playoffs. So, and it's gonna be Montreal. They won 5-2, but they are going to do so without Ron Hensey for the first game of the series because he was suspended. And prolific passing night for Matthew Schneider, who had 4 assists in that last game against the Flyers. So pretty good game there for Matthew Schneider, the aging veteran. So of course we are rivals with the Montreal Canadiens because we tend to face them more often than not in the playoffs. We also tend to beat them more often than not, which always feels good for me. So we went 7-0-1 against Montreal this season. So they do have a couple injuries. Ed Jovanovski and Thomas Plekanec are not going to be playing here in that series. They are hurt. So in net, it's Carey Price and Patrick Roy. So Patrick Roy is 40, Carey Price is 18. On D, it's Beauchemin, Hensey, who's suspended and he's going to miss the first game. Markov, Niklas Avlid, Matthew Schneider, Jack Johnson, Yoni Pitkanen. So that's a pretty good D. Seriously, that's pretty good. Louis Eriksson, Dopita, Chris Higgins, Sean Avery, Stephen Weiss, Brennan McKenzie, Novotny, Pascal Riom, Todd White, Mike Ribeiro, Chad LaRose, Saku Koivu, and Scott Thornton. So maybe not as good at forward. It looks like they converted all of their best centers as wingers, like Stephen Weiss, Ribeiro, Koivu. Those are all natural centers that are now wingers. And then I mean Todd White is okay. Pascal Riom is, so that's kind of interesting what they did. Let's see if we can beat them. Let's see who they send in net. I'm curious to see if they go with Carey Price or Patrick Roy. It is Carey Price. They are going to the youngster. So Carey Price in net for Montreal. We're going to be saying that a lot, I have a feeling. And then Ryan Miller in net for us. And we won the first game 6-1. So we outshot Montreal 45-18. Alexei Yashin was the first star of the game. He had a goal and 3 assists. Brooks Laich was the second star with a goal and an assist. And Dmitry Kalinin was a second star with an assist. We had 20,510 people in attendance for this playoff rivalry game. So Montreal scored first, made everybody in Ottawa upset because it was 12 seconds into the first period, and knowing Montreal fans, they were already planning the Stanley Cup parade after that goal. But then we scored 4 unanswered goals to make them rectify their plans for that parade. So Matt Cullen scored from Martin Avlat, tied it at 1. Alexei Yashin scored from Dmitry Kalinin and Joe Thornton. Jason Spezza scored on the power play from Mark Streit and Alexei Yashin. And then Patrick Eves from Chris Kelly and Alexei Yashin. It was 4-1 Sens after 1. And in the second period, Mark Streit scored on the power play from Brooks Laich and Alexei Yashin, and then Brooks Laich from Anton Volchenkov and Joe Thornton. It was 6-1 Sens after 2. And nobody scored in the third period, so 6-1 was the final score. Alright, so Ainsley is going to be back, so he's going to be playing in the next game, unless they decide to not dress him. And Detroit won the first game against Edmonton, so Detroit is up 1-0. Alright, facing Montreal again. Still Carey Price in net, and we are going to Ryan Miller. And we won 9-1. Welcome to the show, kid. We outshot Montreal 37-13. Brooks Laich was the first star. He had 2 goals and an assist. Daniel Alfredson was the second star with 3 assists. And Dmitry Kalinin was the third star with 2 assists. 20,510 people in attendance again for this game. And yet again, Montreal scored first in the first period. And yet again, Montreal fans were planning where they were, how they were gonna spend the night of that the Montreal Canadiens would win the Stanley Cup. But then Brooks Laich scored, tied the game at 1, assisted by Daniel Alfredson. So it was tied at 1 after 1. Then in the second period, we scored 4 unanswered goals. And then the Montreal fans thought that absolutely no player on their team was worth playing in the NHL. So Mark Streit scored in the second from Zdeno Chara and Chris Kelly. And then Anton Volchenkov from Daniel Alfredson and Jason Spezza. Brooks Laich from Dmitry Kalinin and Patrick Elias. And then Jason Spezza on the power play from Brian McCabe and Brooks Laich. It was 5-1 after 2. And then, just because we like to score 4 goals a period, we scored 4 more in the third period. Patrick Eves from Chris Kelly, Alexei Yashin from Dmitry Kalinin and Chris Phillips, Pavel Datsyuk from Jason Spezza and Chris Phillips, and finally Zdeno Chara from Daniel Alfredson and Mark Streit. 9-1 the final score. What a shellacking to have in the playoffs. Alright, and Marianosa is ready for more drills. Is he gonna make it for the finals? That'd be pretty swell. And Detroit won the second game, so it looks like if we can beat Montreal, it looks like if the tendency continues that we're gonna face Detroit yet again in the finals. Alright, Marianosa almost ready. That's crazy. Alright, so now the series shifted to go to Montreal. Now let's see if we feel as comfortable in Montreal on the ice there with their very noisy fans. Miller and Price in net. And we won 43. We outshot Montreal 44-23. Pavel Datsyuk was the first star. He had a goal and an assist. Jack Johnson was the second star with a goal and an assist. And Anton Volchenkov was the third star with an assist. So Montreal took a 2-0 lead into the first period, and you know what their fans were doing by then. And then Mark Streit scored on the power play from Joe Thornton and Pavel Datsyuk, so it was 2-1 Montreal after one. Then in the second period, Chris Phillips scored from Alexei Yashin and Patrick Eves, and then Pavel Datsyuk short-handed from Anton Volchenkov gave us a 3-2 lead. Then Montreal tied the game at 3. And then Chris Kelly scored from Brooks Laich and Patrick Elias, and 4-3 was the final score. At that point in time, Chris Kelly didn't know it, but he had scored the game winner. Alright, so Osa seems to almost be ready. Yeah, he's day to day. All systems go. Marian Osa is back after not playing a single game in the regular season. He's going to come in and play, and he's going to replace... who do I want to replace here? I think I'm going to have to go with Chris Neal. Welcome back, Marian Osa. We missed you this season. Well, I mean, we beat an NHL record, but we still missed you. Alright, so slides in right on the second line there with Patrick Elias and Brooks Laich. Brooks Laich is having a pretty nice playoff run so far. Alright, so are we going to sweep the Montreal Canadiens as well? So we're going to have Ryan Miller in net. They're still going to Carey Price. And we sure did. We won 6-0. So we outshot Montreal 56-18 in that game. Joe Thornton was the first star. He had a goal and 2 assists. Pavel Datsyuk was the second star. He had 3 assists. And Patrick Elias was the third star, with 2 goals and an assist. So Jason Spezza opened up the scoring in the first on the power play from Chris Kelly and Alexei Yashin, and then Mark Streit scored his 5th from Joe Thornton and Pavel Datsyuk. It was 2-0 after 1. Then in the second period, Patrick Elias scored from Brooks Laich and Marian Osa. Welcome back, Marian Osa. You got an assist right there. And then in the third period, Patrick Elias scored on the power play. It was his 5th from Pavel Datsyuk. Then Jason Spezza scored his 10th of the playoffs from Joe Thornton and Pavel Datsyuk. And then finally, Joe Thornton from Patrick Elias and Daniel Alfredson. 6-0 the final score. We have swept every series so far. Mike Fisher improves at left wing. Oh, Edmonton finally won a game there against Detroit. That's good. So it's what, 3-1 in that series now? Or is it tied at 2? 3-1. So it looks like we will be facing the Red Wings. Yes, we are. They finally eliminated Edmonton. So in an incredible turn of circumstances and an overwhelming feeling of déjà vu, the Ottawa Senators and the Detroit Red Wings are going to face off against each other in the Stanley Cup Finals. Alright, so I get to vote to who can go in the Hall of Fame. I'm not too sure about that Gretzky guy. Alright, Gretzky, Macy, Gilmore, Andrei Chet can all go to the Fame. Alright, so Detroit, we did not play Detroit this year, and they did pretty good themselves. They were 52-26-4 this season. We're going to take a look here, see if Oh, they do have some injuries. So Petrus Brisebois is hurt. He's not going to be playing. Curtis Creshtins is hurt. He's not going to be playing. And Kevin Dahlman is hurt. He's also not going to be playing. So that's 3 defensemen that are hurt and not going to play in the Stanley Cup Finals. Alright, so in net for them it's going to be Jimmy Howard and Chris Osgood. Nick Lidstrom on D. Cal Quincy, Dan McGillis, Keith Carney, Sammy Lepisto, Brian Pothier. Those are the Ds. With all the injuries and everything, that D is not the best. They're running on fumes at all. Up front, it's Franzen, Yuri Udler, Nils Ekman, Tomas Kopechki, Corey Summon, Valery Filppula, Sergei Fedorov, Brad Chartrand, David Viborny, Stefan Yell, Toby Peterson, Dallas Drake, and Rick Zetterberg. Somebody Ronquist, Jonas Ronquist, and Jukka Entunen. So we can win this. Will we though? So first game is in Ottawa. Chris Osgood is going to be in net for Detroit. We are going to Ryan Miller. Go Sens go. Let's go for another Stanley Cup. Oh, we won the first game 10-1, just to show the Wings that it's not going to be easy for them. So we outshot Detroit 53-16. Patrick Elias was the first star. He had 3 assists. Mark Streit was the second star with 2 assists, and Pavel Datsyuk was the third star with 2 goals and an assist. 18,350 people in attendance for that game. Alright, there's going to be a lot of goals to say, so let's get started. So Marian Hossa scored his first of the playoffs from Chris Phillips and Patrick Elias, and then Alexei Yashin scored his 5th from Daniel Alfredson and Dmitry Kalinin. Patrick Eves from Dmitry Kalinin, and then Anton Volchenkov from Patrick Elias and Brian McCabe. 4-0 Sens after 1. Then Pavel Datsyuk opened up the scoring of the second period with a power play goal from Marian Hossa and Anton Volchenkov, made it 5-0. Detroit scored, made it 5-1, but we scored shortly after. It was Joe Thornton from Pavel Datsyuk and Jason Spezza, 6-1 Sens after 2. And then in the third period, Patrick Eves scored from Matt Cullen and Mark Streit. It was his 5th. Then Zdeno Chara scored his 5th as well from Patrick Elias. Alexei Yashin scored from Chris Kelly and Daniel Alfredson. And finally, Pavel Datsyuk scored his 10th from Jason Spezza and Mark Streit. 10-1. Detroit wishes they weren't there. Sheldon Surrey might not have to play injured anymore. Alright, game 2. Let's see if we can score 12 this time. Yeah, Detroit is turning to Jimmy Howard for that particular game. And Ryan Miller's in net for us. Ooh, we managed to lose this game. We lost 5-4 in overtime. So look at us. We couldn't go 16-0 for the Stanley Cup. We outshot Detroit 41-37. Dallas Drake was the first star. He had a goal and 2 assists. Alexei Yashin was the second star with 2 goals and an assist. And Nick Lidstrom was the third star with an assist. 17,942 people were there to witness the first loss for the Ottawa Senators in those playoffs. So Anton Volchenkov opened up the scoring, short-handed in the first period. It was his 5th from Marian Hossa and Pavel Datsyuk. And then Detroit tied the game. It was tied at 1 after 1. Then Detroit took a 2-1 lead, but Alexei Yashin tied the game on the power play from Mark Streit, so it was tied at 2 after 2. Then Detroit scored 2 goals. They were leading 4-2, and then Yashin and Spezza both scored. So Yashin from Alfredson, and then with 4 seconds to go into the third period, Jason Spezza scored on the power play from Yashin to tie the game and send it to overtime. But Dallas Drake played the hero in overtime and scored a game winner, so we lost 5-4. And Sheldon Surrey is finally not hurt anymore. And I have been extended, yay! Didn't see that one coming. Alright, so the series moves to Detroit. Series is tied at 1. So Ryan Miller in net for us. Jimmy Howard, why not? I mean, he managed to beat us. So Ryan Miller, Jimmy Howard in net. And we won that one 7-4. Show them who's in charge again. So we outshot Detroit 45-29. Alexei Yashin was the first star. He had 2 goals and an assist. Marian Osa was the second star with a goal and an assist. And Daniel Alfredson was the third star with 2 assists. We took a 3-0 lead into the first period. Alexei Yashin scored on the power play from Mark Streit. Then Joe Thornton from Marian Osa and Pavel Datsyuk. And then Brooks unassisted. So it was 3-0 Sens after 1. Then in the second period, Detroit scored, but then we scored 2 more goals. Chris Kelly from Alexei Yashin and Daniel Alfredson. Then Jason Spezza from Zdeno Chara and Joe Thornton, 5-1 after 2. And then Marian Osa scored in the third period from Mark Streit, made it 6-1. Then Detroit scored 3 goals and got to 6-4 with 1:40 to go. But then with 33 seconds left to go into the game, Alexei Yashin scored his 10th in an empty net from Daniel Alfredson. 7-4 was the final score. Alright, and we are leading the series 2-1. And we're playing in Detroit again, where we are going to face the Red Wings and probably Jimmy Howard. He's given his team a chance to win. Jimmy Howard, Ryan Miller, and we won 9-2. We are scoring a lot of goals in that Stanley Cup Finals. We outshot Detroit 58-18. Jason Spezza was the first star. He had a goal and 4 assists. Pavel Datsyuk was the second star with 2 goals and an assist. And Patrick Eliash was the third star with 2 goals and an assist. We opened up the scoring in the first. Yashin scored on the power play from Jason Spezza and Mark Streit. Then Daniel Alfredson scored his 5th from Brooks and Alexei Yashin. It was 2-0 after 1. Then in the second period, we had Pavel Datsyuk from Jason Spezza and Joe Thornton, Brian McCabe from Pavel Datsyuk and Jason Spezza, and then Jason Spezza from Dmitry Kalinin and Mark Streit. It was 5-0 Sens after 2. And then we continued to just pile up the goals. Pavel Datsyuk from Jason Spezza and Mark Streit, Patrick Eliash from Chris Kelly from Brian McCabe and Patrick Eliash, and then Patrick Eliash from Zdeno Chara and Sheldon Surrey. It was 9-0 at that point. And then Detroit scored 2 goals within the last minute of the game, but obviously it was way too late, and we managed to win. Nine to 2. Great night for Jason Spezza with a goal and 4 assists. Alright, and with a win in the next game, we are going to be winning another Stanley Cup, a 5th in a row. So let's see if we can do it. Alright, so this may be the last game of this season. They're going back to Chris Osgood, and Ryan Miller's in net for us. And we won 4-1, so we won another Stanley Cup. Can't say it was easy. I mean, we did lose a game during our playoff run. So I'm going to go through that and just talk a little bit. So we did outshoot Detroit 48-23 in this last game. Brooks who had a really good playoff run, was the first star with a goal and 2 assists. Patrick Eliash was the second star with a goal and an assist, and Alexei Yashin was a third star with 2 assists. 19,569 people in attendance for this game. So Detroit opened up the scoring in the first, and then Patrick Elias scored from Brooks Lake, and then in the second period it was Patrick Eves on the power play from Matt Cullen and Brooks Lake. And then in the third period, Brian McCabe scored his 5th on the power play from Alexei Yashin and Mark Streit, and then Brooks Lake scored his 5th from Patrick Elias and Alexei Yashin. And Ottawa Senators fans get to celebrate another Stanley Cup. Alright. Well, I don't really mind that you're day-to-day Patrick Elias because the season is over. We're good, we good. Alright, so let's take a look at all of the winners and everything. Ottawa wins it all yet again against the Detroit Red Wings. Ah, that's good. Oh, I thought it was telling me how much the cap was raising to. Alright, so 10% increase during off season for flexibility. The Hart is going to Jaromir Jagr. Connie Smythe goes to Jason Spezza. The Vizina goes to Ryan Miller. Zdeno Chara wins the Norris. Calder goes to Crosby. Craig Patrick is the GM of the year. The Selke goes to Joe Pavelski. Maurice Richard goes to Spezza. Art Ross goes to Spezza. Chara wins the plus-minus award. He finished at plus 77? Yeah, plus 77. I haven't seen that in a very long time in the NHL. Corey Crawford wins the Roger Crozier Saving Grace Award. The Jennings goes to Ryan Miller. Martin St. Louis is the Lady Byng winner. Brian Leach has won the Bill Masterton Trophy. Mark Messier Leadership Award is won by Nick Lidstrom. Jagr wins the Ted Lindsay. Alain Vigneault is the Coach of the Year. I would hope so. And All-Star teams were revealed. So we have Ryan Miller, Zdeno Chara, Brian McCabe, Pavel Datsyuk, and Jason Spezza that made the cut. Alright, Mike Tonogai is one of my assistant coaches. Well, I would hate to... I mean, we're winning, so might as well keep him, right? So you can stay on board. Alright, so... this is the team that won the Stanley Cup again. So with the salary cap situation and everything, I am more than likely going to have to shed some salary. So we're going to see in the next video what I decide to do. I'm going to need to make it to July 1st so that I can see what the salary cap is going to be and where I'm sitting at and see what I need to do. So I have a little bit of a plan in my head. It's a gross plan, not the gross line, it's not a very well-developed plan, is what I mean. At least not yet. I have broad strikes of a plan that I want to achieve, but I might need to shed some salary there. So we'll see what happens. So we are going to save the game, and this was another successful season. Now on to see if it can continue with, you know, the salary cap and everything. Changes might need to be made, so we'll see if that happens. So as usual, I want to thank you for tuning in, and if you've liked the video, feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment, all of that good stuff. And until I roll this game again, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.